we have been invited to the Scots Guards Club here in Haymarket. Scots Guards Club is of course the club for members of the Scots Guards, but it's also open to anybody who wishes to visit it. What's make it special today though is that the club is celebrating its centenary this year, making it 100 years old. The club itself has been sat in the same location for the last 100 years. When you come in, it's like walking into a museum with an array of collection items dedicated to the club. We're also joined today with a special guest, the General Manager of the club, Mr. John Ray. John, thanks for taking the time to join us.
Morning, James. Great to have you here.
So, can you tell us a wee bit more about the history of the Scots Guards Club?
Sure. Well, this is our 100th year. The club's been in this building since 1924. Their origin, one of the first branches of the Scots Guards Association was the Edinburgh branch. And they used to meet in Castle Street, just off Princess Street. It was one of the earliest branches, and I think with amazing ambition, they bought this place, which is a 3-storey townhouse. At that time, Edinburgh was developing westwards, so it wouldn't have been a cheap place to buy in those days. And with some borrowed money, they bought it and paid off their debt by 1939. So that's the original origin of the club.
So when the club was created, do we have any idea what was the sort of setup of the club when it was first created?
Pretty much. Sadly, we've from 1924 through to the mid-30s, we have no records of minutes. We have a couple of beautiful minute books where all the meetings were minuted from the sort of mid-30s in lovely handwritten text. So there's a bit of a knowledge gap right at the beginning, but you can get a sense from the 30s how it was run, and was very much at that time a club for Scots Guardsmen, serving and past and families. And it was that tight, really. There were very few people come into the club who weren't directly related to the Scots Guards. And as far as we can see from the minutes, it was successful. They were more than solvent, and the club was doing well right through to after the Second War.
So, see how you're saying that it was predominantly members of the Scots Guards. Did it ever have anybody from other regiments coming in?
Yeah, there had visitors, but I mean, it would have been strictly on a signed-in basis. I mean, we'll come, I'm sure, to the way the club's run now, but in those days they were very tight about who was coming in, and I think it was just after the Second War that the club president visited Brigadier Swinton at the time, and it's minuted that he recorded how he was quite disappointed to see a number of non-Scots Guardsmen in the club, and how he very much wanted it to be a Scots Guards club.
So, moving on to the future of the club, let's say the 70s, 80s and 90s, how was the club faring during this time? Was it still predominantly members of the Scots Guards, or was it starting to allow more of a diverse group of visitors?
Well, still pretty tight, I would say, through into the 80s. Membership rules were becoming a bit more accommodating in that there were members, and you can see that, who weren't Scots Guards and weren't even military, but that was fairly limited. And it was only really when you get into the 21st century that we've opened up to where we are now, which is very much just a mixed members club. Unmistakably still the Scots Guards Club, but a mixed members club. So there was a process of evolution, I would say, over the decades from the 50s through to where we are now, believe it or not. And they went through some tough times, and that door nearly closed a few times over the years. And I think as society moved on, business moved on, overheads were getting more and more, and the club at one time was really struggling to keep itself solvent. And again, that through necessity, I think, would have meant that they started to open their doors a bit more widely to other people.
So What sort of events do you hold here in the club?
Here, well, we have the downstairs lounge bar here, and we have a function room upstairs. So the bar is open every day from midday, and as I say, it's a mixed members club. We have all ages coming in here. We have a lot of lady members. Our lunches are very popular. So on a day-to-day basis, it's a busy bar. Function room upstairs. Our diary is full for the rest of the year. Where are we now? Mid-October. There are no spare Fridays or Saturdays right up to Christmas. So we have a busy function room for people having birthdays, anniversary parties, retirement dues, whatever. But the lovely thing as well, you know, as you look around, I know you were taking some images earlier. You know, this downstairs is unmistakably still a Scots Guards club. And we do have quite a few Scots Guards still coming in. We have 3 or 4 Scots Guards reunion type events every year. But what's lovely and what helps keep the character, we have a lot of other military groups come in here and meet. And a lot of sort of legacy regiments. So we have associations from the Black Watch, Royal Scots, Queen's Own Highlanders, Gordon Highlanders, the Artillery, the Royal Engineers, Women's Royal Army Corps. That's just off the top of my head. So, you know, we've a lot of military association groups are using the club for the meetings, and that's just fantastic. And I think keeps the spirit of it being a military club alive.
I think off the top of my head, thinking about my visits here, the first one that pops in my head is when you were holding one of the regimental dinners for the Scots Guards just upstairs. And I can remember hearing the pipes and drums being played, and I remember looking up and I could actually see the ceiling going up and down for the amount of celebrations that was going up there.
Oh, fantastic. And we're certainly we're bagpipe friendly. The chairman, the president, me, we're all pipers. So it's a very bagpipe friendly club. And over the winter, we have the last Sunday of every month, we have a piping knockout competition up the stairs. Every second Tuesday, we have the Eagle Pipers meet here. That's one of the oldest sort of Edinburgh piping societies. So whilst they're not military, they're a very old bagpiping group. So you'll hear bagpipes here quite a lot.
And you were a pipe major yourself in the Scots Guards?
Not a pipe major, no. I was piper in the Scots Guards.
Right.
Yeah, I certainly was. And, you know, friends I made through my tender 5 years in the Scots Guards are still my pals and the people I feel most comfortable with. And that's not just a piping thing, but I think pipe bands in the army, you are particularly close because you're a fairly small unit and you're doing a lot of travelling together and making memories, let's say. So that was it.
It's a form of a family.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But one thing I've got to say about the club is just the vast array of items that you've got on display. Because as you were saying, you're trying to become a bit more diverse to make sure that you've got the club continuing, but you're still continuing to show its origins, the identity of the club, in which you can clearly see when you're in here.
Good. I'm glad you see that, and I'm glad you think that, because that's certainly what I'm trying to do here. So the ground floor, as you wander around, is just full of Scots Guards memorabilia, and we're adding to that all the time. You know, people are kind enough to donate things that have maybe been lying in the back of their cupboard, and they think, well, we'd rather they were on display so people could see them and talk about them and appreciate them. The function room upstairs, I've demilitarized it. So, because I think if you're on the 21st birthday party, you don't necessarily want the Battle of Waterloo staring down at you. So there's just some nice bright prints of Edinburgh up in that room, but downstairs. And as I say, we're adding to it all the time. We've just launched a library project. Our top floor, we're going to convert the front room into so not the function room, floor above that, into a sort of meeting room stroke library. We've got a donation, a kind donation from a chap recently of Scots Guards related books that he'd built up this collection over the years. So he donated that to the club. So that was the inspiration to think, well, actually, you know, we could start collecting books on not just the Scots Guards, but certainly household division, guards in general, and maybe a bit wider, and become a really good reference point in one of the leading libraries. I'm getting very excited about this, you can see. One of the leading libraries for Scots Guards books. So that's ongoing at the moment. I'm hoping some people, as they do with pictures, will maybe donate books that they've had lying in the house for a while. But the club will also purchase them as new books are published. We'll buy them in, and we're going to have a real cracking library and a real leading edge reference point for all things Guards history.
What's kind of good about that as well is that you're creating this environment where not only can people come in and socialise, but you're creating this environment where people are coming in and they can learn more about the Scots Guards. I mean, you've got all the items around here that'll be inspiring people. Every item here has obviously got a story, and now you're just helping tell that story by creating this library.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the intention, and there's work to be done down here. So we've got all these lovely pictures and bits and pieces and memorabilia, but I'd like to have more information on the wall telling you about that, because unless you know, then you don't know. So a lot of these, as you say, a lot of these have a story behind them. So there's a bit of work to be done to maybe get some information boards up so that people can understand what the various things are.
Well, I usually ask this question to the curators of the museums that we speak to, but since you've practically got a museum inside the club, I'm going to ask you this. What's your favourite item that's on display?
My favourite item? My only indulgence here being a piper is my piper's wall there with all the sort of piping stuff, but it would be wrong of me to maybe to claim that. My favourite item, you'll see down here, we have a banner or a colour that on the top corner has got SFG, and that's Scots Fusilier Guards. So before the Scots Guards became known as the Scots Guards, they were the Scots Fusilier Guards. And it was round about Queen Victoria's time that the name changed to Scots Guards. So that over there in that frame, I think, for me, it's certainly one of the older pieces we've got, and I think it's hugely significant. So if I had to pick one, I would pick the Scots Fusilier Guards. It's not a colour. I think it would be called a banner, or it's more than a flag, but I should know the technical term, but that's it.
Well, it's amazing that you've got something like that within the club as well, because you're not only showing the regiment's current status, but you're showing its heritage as well. You're showing what used to be before what is now.
I hope so.
It's fantastic. You're doing a brilliant job with it.
Thanks, James.
Well, John, thanks very much for taking the time to speak to us about the club. It's much appreciated.
Great to have you.
Is there any specific events coming up in the future with the club?
Well, this has been the big year. It's a centenary year, so we've had 2 big party weekends. We've got a couple of plans, things that we want to do in terms of where does the club go now. It used to be a force for good. Certainly before the Second War, the club was writing cheques for good causes and helping widows out, and an annual donation to Sick Children's Hospital, and so there's things to be done there, I think, in the future. Rugby days are big days here. Keep money coming across the bar, which is always important. So we've got rugbies coming up, and then we've big military events. The famous Rabbits Breakfast in February, where over 100 former and serving Scots Guards will descend on the club and have their breakfast and continue that motion throughout the day. So we stock up on port for that day. So there's always things happening, and as I say, the year's punctuated with these various military events and gatherings, which is wonderful, and that's absolutely keeping the spirit of the club alive.
Another question just quickly popped in my head as you were talking there is Remembrance Day. What does the club do for Remembrance Day?
The Remembrance Day is a wonderful day here, and helped, I think, we have a war memorial right across the road, which is associated certainly with Hearts Football Club, McRae's battalion, and the story behind all that. So a lot of people descend on Haymarket, but we've a lot of military people as well who will come in here before. So all the poppy wreaths are delivered here from Poppy Scotland. So we open early so people can come and get their wreaths. We don't serve drink before the service. And once the service is over, this place is full. And again, it's lovely because it allows serving and former people and people who are just interested to chat over a drink. And you know, for me, it really brings sort of Remembrance Sunday alive. You're not just going for your half hour at the memorial and going home. So it's a whole day event almost. It's a shame the last couple of years that they've held one of the autumn series Rugby Internationals. So last year and again this year, there's a Rugby International on that day. So as well as the people over at the War Memorial, you'll have thousands of folk in for the rugby. And of course, rugby days are busy days here.
Yeah.
So what we do, we prioritise downstairs the bar for the Remembrance Day people, and anyone who's coming in who's clearly rugby related goes upstairs to the function room.
One thing I can say for certainty that this year on Remembrance Day we'll certainly be paying you a visit.
Excellent.
I'll tell you a personal story from last year since we're discussing it. Since you're saying about how it really brings Remembrance Day alive, being able to share everybody's individual stories. Myself and Darryl, after the service, we were actually going to go and quickly take a visit to the National Museum of Scotland to visit Daniel Laidlaw's Victoria Cross.
Oh yeah.
Because Darryl had never seen it, but he's really interested about the Piper of Lewes. And on the way there, we bumped into a former member of the Argyll and Southern Highlanders.
Right.
And he was standing waiting for a taxi, so we ended up chatting away with him. Before we knew it, we were standing there for about an hour, just chatting away with him, hearing about his stories, and it was absolutely fantastic. And
wonderful.
I think that's a very important part of remembrance, just being able to have each individual story be told, because everyone has got a story at the end of the day, and everybody does deserve to tell their story. But one thing we have noticed now is that at Remembrance Day there seems to be a less and less people going, which is a shame. It's more of in my opinion, this is just my personal opinion, the younger generation, which includes my generation, doesn't seem to show the same sort of passion as the people before. And my argument for that is because of the connection. Although these people don't have connections to the conflicts.
Yes.
It's not as, what's the correct word for it?
It's not as relevant to their lives as maybe a previous generation. I think as the military shrinks as well, there'll be fewer and fewer people who have a connection to somebody who's maybe served in the military. The only upside I would put to that for the younger generation, I think, you know, when I was a boy in school, and certainly the First or Second War was not on the curriculum at all. I think certainly round about the time, and it's maybe dropped away again, but round the time of the sort of 100th anniversary of the First War, the First War was on curriculum. You get a lot of schools now go and do battlefield tours, etc. So, you know, that's the one positive spin I would maybe put on recent years, is that there's more of an awareness being taught through the schools. But as I say, now that the 100 years from the First War is maybe well behind us, that's maybe tailed off a bit. But it's modern life, isn't it?
Well, we hope by doing something like this, it will spark the fuse for the future generations to become interested and, who knows, become members of the club. Never know.
Excellent. Good stuff you're doing. It really is. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for spending the time to speak to us, John.
See you, James.
See ya.